If you could change one thing in your daily routine to get fluent in Spanish, would you do it? This single habit made one of the biggest differences in my journey to get fluent in Spanish. If you don't know me, my name is Hamid. I'm 15 years old and I became a polyglot at 13 after getting fluent in Spanish during the summer of 2022. And I spent around 120 hours total studying. Here's how I sounded before.
Hola, estoy comiendo comida. Voy a mejorar mi español.
Y ahora puedo hablar con fluidez, puedo hablar con los nativos de lo que sea. My first motivation to get fluent in Spanish was this guy in my class had made it popular in the class to sort of start studying on Duolingo because he started getting better at Spanish from Duolingo, very slightly. And so the rest of us started getting into that as well. And this guy wasn't a high-performing student either, and he was at the top of our class in Spanish. So we were like, okay, let's also try it. And that sort of motivated me to do research on different apps and different sort of methods of learning Spanish. And I found this YouTuber named Language Lords. This guy, essentially in his video, he got fluent in 44 days, and he just showed sort of his method in a very comprehensible way. The editing is really good as well. And previously, he'd also gotten fluent in French. And he was talking about this speaking exercise that he did in that video, which he put most of his efforts into, and that is really what supercharged his journey. And so this exercise essentially entailed that he was just speaking Spanish or whatever language he was learning, and then when he didn't know how to say something, he would just find out how to say it using different apps, and then he would say it again and he would repeat that process. Now, from seeing that and seeing his other exercises he did for understanding Spanish, those exercises inspired my own version of those exercises essentially, where I used the same concepts that he used and made my own exercises, which I now call transcript training, and the one that I'm going to talk about in this video, narrate, elaborate, and contemplate, which is just a framework for speaking. Now, I hyperfixated on these two methods during the summer of 2022, and by the end of it, I was able to have hour-long conversation with a native, and I was able to just speak fluently. And when I came back to school, because before the break, I told everyone that I was going to get fluent in Spanish, and obviously it was a bold claim. But then after, it was I'd achieved the goal, and some people in my class were wondering, oh, how do you do it? And that was a fun story for me to explain. And it made total sense because those methods included how we got fluent as kids. Because there's one fact of the universe that you and me both know, and that is how we got fluent in our own native language. You see, the way I got fluent in Spanish is the same way I got fluent in Azeri, it's the same way I got fluent in Swedish and also in English. And every language I've learned, I speak 4 languages fluently, I'm technically a polyglot. All of those languages I learned in the same exact way. And it's interesting, you also learned English probably in the same way that I learned Spanish. It's just that when you study Spanish, you don't learn it in that same way. And that equation to get fluent is just speaking multiplied by understanding. Because a conversation is just that. I've said this a billion times, but it is vital that you understand this. I'm speaking, you understand. Then we switch. You speak and I'm understanding you. That is a conversation right there. Nothing to do with reading. And the best exercise for that is having conversations with natives. Because what is the goal? The goal is to be able to have conversations with natives. And so the best exercise to have conversations with natives is to have conversations with natives. It is the most simple thing ever. However, most of us can't 24/7 have a tutor to speak with. Though, if we did, that would be the best method to get fluent. And I actually know this for a fact because this guy named Shauma, who gets fluent in languages extremely quickly, this is the basis of every single time he gets fluent in any language. And in Spanish, he would just speak 24/7. He would go on a call with a native and just speak Spanish and understand Spanish. He would just do speaking times understanding, and that's how he got fluent. And he got fluent in 20 days pretty much, or 30 days. And so the best exercise to get fluent in Spanish would be to have conversations with natives. But obviously you can't do that 24/7. I surely couldn't do that 24/7. Instead, I had one exercise for speaking and one exercise for understanding. Now, the exercise I did for understanding, I'm going to talk about in a separate video. I call that transcript training. But specifically for speaking, you actually don't need to have a Spanish person to speak with. You can literally just speak at any moment ever. And so my main studying, the time I spent studying, was doing the exercise for understanding, because obviously to understand Spanish, you need to listen to Spanish, right? Real native Spanish. You can't think of native Spanish. You have to have a computer or some sort of device or some sort of headphones. You need to be able to listen to it in some sort of way. But with speaking, you can do it at any given moment. And so I developed a habit of doing this framework, this exercise, just whenever I could, as much as possible, just naturally throughout the day. And this exercise is narrate, elaborate, contemplate. So all we want to do, and this is what Language Lords did, his method was he would speak in front of a camera and record himself telling a story. And whenever he didn't know how to say a word, he would say it in English. And then by the end of the recording, when he finished the story, he would go back and then he would write all the words he didn't know how to say. And then he would tell the story again. And he would repeat that over and over again. Now, I tried that a little, and that is how I got some of these recordings of me speaking Spanish. But I'm going to be honest, that didn't really work for me. Because it wasn't in a native way, and it was in a way that was like unnatural. I tweaked the exercise into what I call narrate, elaborate, contemplate. And it was the same idea. When we don't know how to say something, we find out how to say it, and then we say it. Now, all this means is we need to speak Spanish, and then when we don't understand, we try to understand, and then we go back to speaking Spanish. And this ladder, I call it the SIR ladder. It is literally just that: speak, understand, repeat. And that is like the ladder. Essentially, it is to speak, understand, and repeat. And realistically, any exercise that does that, speak, understand, repeat, will train the speaking ability really well. That is what language lords did. I just like to do it using this framework I call narrate, elaborate, contemplate. So first step is to narrate. This is where you narrate possibly a story, something that happened recently, something that you want to happen. To narrate is like to report, to sort of tell someone about, right? To narrate it. Usually it can be a story. A story I find is really good. It could also be an explanation, you know? It could be an explanation of something that you like to do, okay? Or something that you've done or anything like that. So first, it's a narration of something. So an example would be, I'm trying to become a barber, so I've been going on YouTube to find different tutorials and different clippers that I could buy. That, except you want to say it in Spanish, of course, okay? Now let's say I didn't know how to say the word barber. Then, as you're speaking, you would pause, and then you go on an app called DeepL, and that is an app where it's essentially a translator. And you translate it, essentially, how to say barber, and you'll find different words for it. Just pick any word pretty much, and boom, then you'll say that. Quiero ser barber. I actually don't know the word for barber. Then the next step is to elaborate. So, I want to become a barber in order to make money, okay? And I will use this money for this. Or I want to become a barber because I want to help my friends. And then you essentially give more details, okay? Elaborate. Which clippers are you going to buy? Essentially, question yourself when it comes to details. The last step is to contemplate, and that is sort of question the entire thing. And this is where, like, this is more advanced when it comes to speaking. This is what more advanced people will do. When you're in a conversation and someone questions you, that is like the more high level sort of levels of argumenting. Even in English, the highest level of like speaking is usually like these debates where people are questioning people's thinking methods and like these more advanced levels of thinking. And so I like to do that on myself by replicating that and doing that exact same thing by questioning myself. So you contemplate, okay, well, why do I really want to become a barber? Is it worth it? What are the pros and cons? You know, it's about reasoning. It's about continuing and giving even more details. This is just how I like to think about it. We speak as much as possible, and these are the things that I like speaking about. And doing this will make you use the most common words as well. Now, when you don't know how to say a word, again, DeepL to translate it, and then boom, you say it again. Now, there might be a situation where you also don't understand how to say a verb, or like how to conjugate a specific irregular verb. Like, for example, we have ser, right? Let's say you forgot how to say you guys are, or they are, and you forgot that it's son. Then you go on a website called SpanishDict.com or SpanishDictionary.com, and then there you can put the verb ser, and then boom, you can find all like the different conjugations for that. So that is also what I used. And so this exercise can be done literally anytime, 24/7, okay? It's better to speak it, obviously. Though speaking Spanish randomly today can look weird, what I like to do personally is to just whisper, and hopefully my parents don't hear me or something. Or just think in Spanish, right? That's another way to do it. So you think about how you can narrate something and then elaborate on it and then contemplate on it. And all that in Spanish. When you don't know a word, you go on DeepL and you translate it. Now you might be thinking like, shouldn't you try to remember those words? Like, what are you doing to remember those words? And I also followed this. During the summer, I tried making a flashcards list where essentially when I didn't know how to say a word, I'll put it into like a flashcard deck. And I was able to accumulate like a 120 word flashcard deck on Anki. But realistically, that doesn't work that well because again, you want to exercise it within context, and flashcards just don't achieve that. So the thing is though, you actually don't need to do that because even in the way we learned our language, right? We would speak it when we maybe forget a word here and there. Like just recently I was just scrolling and I found this video of Billie Eilish and she forgot what a grape was, right? Like she's fluent obviously, of course, but she forgot what a grape was just randomly. Or like one time me and my friend, we forgot how to say the word store in Swedish. like grocery store. We were just thinking like, what is grocery store? And then we had to translate it finally to find out. And it was like a dumb moment because obviously it was like, it's an easy word, it's store. And so it's like, yes, you forget, but the way you learn is by just speaking it over and over again. And it's actually better that you don't use flashcards because when you're speaking, you're gonna use the same words many times over. And that is why you have to translate those words. For example, in any story I'd say, I'm probably always going to use the past tense of like estar or like the word tener. Like the verb tener and its different tenses, you are gonna have to use it in any case, especially when you go deep into elaboration and contemplation, when you really question things. Like the word por qué, you are going to use that all the time, right? So it's like you don't need to use any flashcards for that because you're gonna speak it, and then when you don't understand it, you're going to try to understand it, you know? Speak, understand, repeat, sir. So you're gonna speak and then we're gonna understand it by using deep L. So either way, you're going to repeat it, right? There's no way you're not going to repeat it. And also you're probably gonna repeat it in the other exercise, the listening exercise to understand Spanish. And so the best habit to do is just to do this anytime during the day. And if you don't want to look weird, just think it, right? So think about a story you could say. And I'm gonna think out loud and do this in Spanish. And even me, I'm pretty fluent, but I guarantee you there's gonna be times where I'm not gonna be able to say anything, okay? So, ahora voy a hablar en español para mostrarte cómo hacer este ejercicio que es narrate, elaborate, contemplate o narrar, elaborar y contemplar. No sé si es narrar. Maybe narrate, I don't know how to say it, but I assume it's narration, narración, narrar. Yeah, narrar is the narrate. Okay, so, bueno, voy a hablar de cómo fue crear este canal. Porque hace un año creé este canal en verdad era para ganar dinero. Que quería como... So there I'm trying to say, I wanted to help people. Now, I'm not sure if it's a la gente or if it's personas. So I wanted to help people. Now I'll translate that. I wanted to help a la gente. Yes, so it's a la gente. Quería ayudar a la gente con lo que sea. Es que en mi vida hice muchas cosas, o sea, he logrado muchas cosas como en, por ejemplo, aprender el español. Entonces, so I want to say I would make videos, but I'm not sure if I would use the future tense or if I would use the past tense. I actually do, but as an example to show you, right? I would create videos. I would make videos. Okay, there you would just use that. Habría videos hablando de lo que sea, de religión, de fitness. I don't know how to say fitness, so let's put that. Oh, it's the same thing, fitness. Okay, de fitness, de lo que sea. Y it wasn't until. I didn't know how to say that either. I don't know how to say it wasn't until. So let's translate that. It wasn't until. No fue hasta el verano de 2024 que me di cuenta que hacer videos de lo que sea no era optimal. O sea, no era lo que... Para realmente ayudar a la gente, no fue the best. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best. Let's write that. No fue lo mejor. Okay, I knew that. Okay. So a lot of times, like for example, I know the best would be lo mejor. No fue lo mejor. Or for example, it wasn't until, right? I could probably think and get to no fue hasta que, whatever. But the point is, you want to just be slow with it, right? Think through how to say something. And when you truly don't know how to say something, like I didn't know how to say fitness, then you write fitness. So that is how you do it. That is the exercise, and you want to do it as much as you can. And the more you do this, the better you're going to get at speaking, okay? And one of the fundamental parts of fluency is speaking, because fluency is just that. It is speaking multiplied by understanding. It is I speak, you understand, and then we switch. You speak and I understand. So fundamentally, you need to speak and understand. And so this is the exercise I use for speaking Spanish and getting fluent in that way. One tip to give finally is to try to replicate the accents that you hear around you when doing the listening exercise, or just generally, right? You want to try speaking, but also with the accent, and that will make you sound even more native and more, better at Spanish than other people. So yeah, if you want to learn more about how to do this exercise along with how I got fluent in Spanish and how you can also get fluent using that same method, then check the description for one-on-one coaching. And I hope this video helped you, bro, and stay humble.